The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Lisa Martinez walked down the long metal hallway, her violin case in her hand. The case was old and worn, covered in scratches from their long journey through space. She had carried it every day for 3 years now, ever since they left Earth behind. Lisa stopped at the big window that looked out into space. Stars filled the darkness like tiny diamonds. Somewhere out there was their new home. Captain Jake Thompson had told everyone. They would arrive soon, maybe even today. Lisa pressed her hand against the cold glass and thought about Earth. She could still remember the last day, when the sky turned red and the alien ships came down like angry birds. The Zephyrians had come without warning. They destroyed cities and turned the air into poison. 50,000 people had made it onto the ship called New Horizon. That was all that was left of the human race. Lisa was only 22 then, fresh out of music school. Now she was 25 and the only thing keeping people's hearts from breaking completely. She walked to the main hall where people gathered every evening. The room was big enough for 1,000 people, but tonight it felt small because everyone was there. Children sat on the floor in front, their parents behind them. Old people leaned on walking sticks and young couples held hands. They all looked tired. 3 years in space did that to people. Captain Thompson stood at the front of the room. He was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes. His uniform was clean, but Lisa could see the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Keeping 50,000 people alive in space was not easy work. Friends, Captain Thompson said, his voice carrying across the room. I have good news. Our sensors show we will reach Kepler 4 to be in less than 6 hours. We will be there before midnight, Earth time. People started talking excitedly. Some cried with relief, others hugged each other. Lisa felt her heart beat faster. After 3 years of living in metal rooms and eating processed food, they would finally have a real world under their feet. I know this has been hard, the captain continued. We lost our home. We lost people we loved. But we are still here. We are still human. And tomorrow we start fresh. Lisa looked around the room. She saw hope in people's faces for the first time in months. But she also saw fear. What if the new planet was not good for humans? What if there were dangerous animals? What if the air was not safe to breathe? Captain Thompson looked at Lisa and nodded. This was her signal every night for 3 years. She had played music for the people. It helped them remember that being human meant more than just staying alive. It meant creating beautiful things. Even when everything seemed hopeless, Lisa opened her violin case. The instrument inside was over 200 years old. Her great-great-grandmother had played it in concerts on Earth. Her great-grandmother had played it during the last World War. Her grandmother had played it at weddings and funerals. Her mother had played it in the school orchestra where Lisa first learned to love music. The violin was made of dark wood that glowed like honey in the light. The strings were new. Lisa had to replace them often during the journey, but the body of the instrument held memories of every song it had ever played. She lifted the violin to her chin and raised the bow. The room became perfectly quiet. Even the baby stopped crying. Lisa closed her eyes and began to play. The song was old, older than any of them. It was about endings and beginnings, about saying goodbye to the past and saying hello to the future. The melody was sad at first, like tears falling, but then it grew stronger, like hope rising from deep inside the heart. Lisa had learned this song from an ancient recording. The original singers were long dead, but their words lived on. She played it now without words, letting the violin speak for itself. The music floated through the air like a bird, touching every person in the room. As she played, Lisa thought about tomorrow. In a few hours, they would see their new sun rise over their new world. Children would run on real grass instead of metal floors. People would breathe air that came from trees instead of machines. They would plant gardens and build houses, and maybe someday they would be happy again. But tonight was special too. Tonight was the last night they would all be together on this ship. Tomorrow they would spread out across a whole planet. Some People would live in the mountains, others by the ocean. They would build new towns and new lives. Things would never be the same. The song reached its end, but Lisa did not stop playing. She started it again, softer this time. People began to hum along. They did not know all the words, but they knew the feeling. It was the feeling of standing at the edge of something new and scary and wonderful. Outside the ship, far away in the darkness, alien eyes watched the human vessel. Admiral Crix of the Zephyrian Empire sat in his command chair, studying the readings from his sensors. The humans were almost at their destination. Soon he would have to decide what to do with them. The Zephyrians were a proud race. They controlled dozens of star systems and hundreds of worlds. They did not understand why the humans were celebrating. The humans had lost everything. Their planet was gone. Their civilization was destroyed. They should be crying, not making strange sounds with primitive instruments. Admiral Crix had been following the human ship for weeks. His orders were simple: capture the humans and put them to work in the mines of the outer worlds. Humans were good workers when properly motivated. They were also creative, which made them useful for solving problems. But something about these humans puzzled him. Every night they gathered together and listened to one female make sounds with a wooden object. The sounds served no practical purpose. They did not provide food or shelter or protection. Yet the humans seemed to value these sounds more than anything else. The admiral made a note in his log. Perhaps human behavior would be worth studying before they were sent to the labor camps. Understanding how humans thought might help the Zephyrians control other races more effectively. Back on the New Horizon, Lisa finished playing. The last note hung in the air like a prayer. People wiped tears from their eyes and smiled at each other. Captain Thompson looked at the ship's chronometer. 11:58 Earth time, 2 minutes until the new year, he announced. 2 minutes. Until we begin again. Lisa held her violin close to her chest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new fears. But it would also bring new possibilities. The music had reminded everyone of something important. Humans were more than just survivors. They were dreamers and creators and believers in beautiful things. Outside, the stars waited to welcome them home. The New Horizon shook gently as it entered the atmosphere of Kepler 4 for to be. Lisa woke up in her small sleeping pod and looked out the tiny window. Below her, she could see green and blue colors swirling together like paint on a canvas. Their new world looked beautiful from space. Captain Thompson's voice came through the speakers in every room. All passengers, please report to your assigned viewing areas. We are beginning our descent to the surface. Please remain calm and follow all safety instructions. Lisa grabbed her violin case and hurried to the main observation deck. Hundreds of people pressed against the windows, trying to get their first real look at their new home. Children climbed on chairs to see better while parents held babies up to the glass. Look at all that water, said an old man standing next to Lisa. It's bluer than Earth's oceans ever were. Lisa nodded. The planet was covered in vast blue seas, with green and brown continents scattered between them. White clouds drifted across the surface like cotton balls. It looked peaceful and welcoming, nothing like the dead world they had left behind. But as the ship flew lower, Lisa noticed something strange. There were lights on the dark side of the planet. Not just a few lights, but thousands of them arranged in patterns that looked like cities. Someone else was already living here. Captain Thompson must have seen the lights too, because his voice came over the speakers again. Attention all passengers, we have detected signs of intelligent life on the surface. Please do not panic. We are receiving a communication signal now. The main screen at the front of the observation deck flickered to life. A face appeared that was definitely not human. The being had pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Its head was bigger than a human head, and it had no hair. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. Welcome, travelers from Earth. The being said, I am Elder Voss of the Althean people. We have been waiting for you. People in the observation deck started talking all at once. Some were scared, others excited. Lisa felt her heart racing. First contact with an alien race. She had dreamed about this moment, but never thought it would happen. We know about your world, Elder Voss continued. We have been listening to your radio signals for many years. We heard your music and your stories. When we learned that your planet was destroyed, we prepared a place for you here. Captain Thompson appeared on the screen next to Elder Voss. The Althians have been monitoring our approach, he explained to everyone. They want to help us build a new home. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. After 3 years of running and hiding, someone actually wanted to help them, but her relief was short-lived. Another voice came through the ship's communication system, this one harsh and metallic. Human vessel, this is Admiral Krex of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. The observation deck went silent. Everyone knew that name. The Zephyrians were the ones who had destroyed Earth. They had followed the humans across the galaxy. On the screen, Elder Voss looked worried. The destroyers have found you, he said sadly. We will do what we can to protect you, but our people are not warriors. 3 large dark ships appeared in the sky above them. They were bigger than the New Horizon and covered in weapons. Lisa could see smaller fighter ships pouring out of them like angry wasps from a nest. Commander Ryan Brooks ran onto the observation deck. He was the head of the ship's small security force. Everyone needs to get to the emergency shelters now, he shouted. This is not a drill. People started moving toward the exits, but Lisa stayed by the window. She watched as the Althian ships rose from the planet's surface to meet the Zephyrian fleet. The Althian vessels were beautiful, shaped like flowers with petals that glowed with soft light, but they looked tiny compared to the dark Zephyrian warships. Lisa, you need to go, Commander Brooks said, putting his hand on her shoulder. What about the music? Lisa asked. What if we need to keep people calm? Brooks looked at her violin case. Bring it to the shelter. If we need music, we'll find you. Lisa ran through the corridors of the ship. Emergency lights flashed red and blue. The ship's computer kept announcing instructions in a calm voice that seemed wrong for such a dangerous situation. She made it to Emergency Shelter 3 just as the first explosion rocked the ship. The shelter was a reinforced room in the center of the ship. About 200 people were crammed inside, sitting on the floor or leaning against the walls. Children cried while adults tried to comfort them. The air smelled like fear and sweat. Lisa sat down next to Mrs. Garcia, an elderly woman who had been a teacher on Earth. What do you think will happen to us? Mrs. Garcia asked. I don't know, Lisa said honestly, but we're still alive. That's something on the shelter's small screen. They could see what was happening outside. The Althian ships were trying to protect the New Horizon, but their weapons were not strong enough to hurt the Zephyrian vessels. The alien ships that had welcomed them were being destroyed one by one. Admiral Krix's face appeared on the screen. He looked like all Zephyrians, tall and thin with gray skin and yellow eyes. His uniform was black with silver decorations that showed his high rank. Humans, he said, your alien friends cannot save you. You belong to the Zephyrian Empire now. You will work in our factories and mines until you die. This is the price for defying us. We never defied you, Captain Thompson's voice replied. We just wanted to live in peace. Admiral Krix made a sound that might have been laughter. Peace is for the strong. You are weak. Your planet is gone. Your ships are surrounded. You have nothing left to bargain with. Lisa looked around the shelter. Everyone was listening to the conversation between their captain and the alien admiral. Their faces showed despair and defeat. After traveling so far and hoping for so long, it seemed like they were going to become slaves after all. But then Lisa remembered something. She opened her violin case and touched the smooth wood of her instrument. This violin had survived wars and disasters. It had played at celebrations and funerals. It had carried the hopes and dreams of her family for generations. Maybe Captain Thompson was wrong. Maybe they did have something to bargain with. Something the Zephyrians had never encountered before. Something that made humans different from every other race in the galaxy. Lisa stood up in the crowded shelter. I need to get to the communication center, she said. You can't leave, Mrs. Garcia said. It's too dangerous. I have an idea, Lisa said, holding up her violin. Maybe music isn't just for keeping people calm. Maybe it can do more than that. Commander Brooks heard her from across the shelter. What are you thinking? Lisa looked at all the frightened faces around her. These people had lost everything, but they were still human. They still had the thing that made them special, the ability to create beauty even in the darkest times. I want to play for the Zephyrians, Lisa said. I want to show them what they're really destroying. The ship shook again as another explosion hit. Outside, the last of the Althean ships was falling toward the planet's surface. Soon the Zephyrians would board the New Horizon and their new life would become a nightmare unless music could save them all. Lisa ran through the shaking corridors of the New Horizon with her violin case clutched tight against her chest. Emergency lights flashed red as another explosion hit the ship's outer hull. She could hear people shouting and the sound of metal. Bending under stress. Commander Brooks caught up with her near the communication center. Lisa, what exactly are you planning to do? He asked as they ran. I'm not sure yet, Lisa said, breathing hard. But music is the only thing we have that they don't understand. Maybe that's important. They reached the communication center where Captain Thompson was trying to coordinate with the surviving Althean ships. His face was covered in sweat and his uniform was torn from crawling through damaged sections of the ship. Captain, Lisa said, I need to broadcast my violin through the ship's external speakers. Captain Thompson looked at her like she had lost her mind. Lisa, we're in the middle of a battle. This isn't the time for a concert, please, Lisa said. Just give me 5 minutes. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to the shelter. Before the captain could answer, Admiral Crix's voice boomed through the communication system. Human ship, you have 30 seconds to surrender before we begin boarding procedures. Your alien friends are defeated. You have no options left. Captain Thompson looked at Lisa, then at Commander Brooks. Do it, he said suddenly. Connect her violin to every speaker on the ship. Internal and external, Lisa opened her violin case. With shaking hands, the instrument looked so small and fragile compared to the massive warships outside. How could something made of wood and strings fight against laser cannons and plasma torpedoes? Wait, said Dr. Amy Chen, running into the communication center. She was the ship's xenobiologist, the person who studied alien life forms. I've been analyzing the Zephyrian transmissions. Their brain patterns are different from ours, very different. Different how? Captain Thompson asked. They don't process sound the same way we do. Dr. Chen explained quickly. Humans developed music because it helped us work together and bond as groups. But Zephyrians evolved alone as solitary hunters. Complex sound patterns might confuse their neural networks. Lisa lifted her violin to her chin. Only one way to find out. She began to play the same song she had played the night before, the one about new beginnings and hope. But this time she played it louder. With more emotion, the music poured out through the ship's speakers and into space. At first, nothing happened. The Zephyrian ships continued their approach, getting ready to attach boarding tubes to the New Horizon's hull. Lisa kept playing, pouring all her fear and hope and love for humanity into the music. Then something strange occurred. The lead Zephyrian ship began to drift off course. Its engines were still running, but it was moving in a slow circle instead of forward. What's happening? Captain Thompson asked. Dr. Chen was watching her computer screen with wide eyes. The music is interfering with their navigation systems. No, wait, it's not the systems. It's the pilots. They can't concentrate. Lisa played louder, adding complex harmonies that she had never attempted before. The violin sang with a voice that seemed to come from the souls of every human who had ever lived. The second Zephyrian ship started spinning out of control. On the main screen, they could see Admiral Crix in his command center. The tall alien was holding his head in his hands, his yellow eyes squeezed shut. Other Zephyrians around him were stumbling and falling over. Impossible, the Admiral's voice came through the speakers, but now it sounded weak and confused. What is this weapon? Lisa stopped playing for a moment. The Zephyrian ships immediately stopped their erratic movements and began advancing again. It works, she said, breathing hard. The music hurts them somehow. Keep playing, Commander. Brooks said, don't stop. Lisa raised her violin again, but this time she played something different. She played the song her grandmother had taught her, the one about standing strong in the face of danger. The melody was sharp and fierce, like a battle cry made of notes instead of words. The effect on the Zephyrians was even stronger this time. Two of their ships collided with each other as their pilots lost control. Fighter craft tumbled through space like leaves in a windstorm. Admiral Crix's voice came through the speakers again, but now he sounded angry and in pain. Turn off that noise. Turn it off now. It's not noise, Lisa said, though she knew he couldn't hear her. It's music. It's the most human thing there is. She played for 20 minutes straight, until her fingers were cramped and her bow arm ached. The Zephyrian fleet was in complete chaos. Ships crashed into each other or spun helplessly through space. Some tried to retreat, but their pilots couldn't navigate properly while the music was playing. Finally, Admiral Crix managed to send a transmission. His image on the screen was shaky and distorted. Human ship, cease your attack. We will negotiate, Captain. Thompson looked at Lisa. Can you keep playing if we need you to? Lisa nodded, though she was exhausted, as long as necessary. The captain opened a channel to the Zephyrian admiral. We're not attacking you, we're just playing music. If it bothers you, you can leave. What is this weapon? Admiral Crix demanded. How does it work? Dr. Chen stepped forward. It's not a weapon, it's art. Humans create it to express emotions and bring people together. Your species never developed anything like it, so your brains don't know how to process it. Impossible, the admiral said, but his voice was weaker than before. Art is not a weapon. For humans, art is everything, Captain Thompson said. It's why we left Earth instead of surrendering. It's why we've survived 3 years in space. It's why we'll keep fighting no matter what you do to us. Elder Voss's voice came through on another channel. Admiral Crix, the humans speak truth. We have studied their transmissions for decades. They are not like other species. They create beauty even when they are dying. Lisa looked out at the crippled Zephyrian fleet. These aliens had destroyed her home world and killed billions of people. But now they were helpless, confused by something as simple as a violin song. She felt a strange mixture of victory and sadness. Music had always been about bringing people together, not driving them apart. But if this was the only way to protect her people, she would do it. Admiral, Captain Thompson said, we don't want to fight you. We just want to live in peace on this planet. The Altheans have offered to share their world with us. You can leave now and never come back. Admiral Crix was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. This is not over. Humans, we will find a way to overcome your strange weapon. The Zephyrian Empire does not accept defeat. Then you'll have to accept music, Lisa said, raising her violin again. Because we'll never stop playing. The Zephyrian ships began to retreat, moving slowly and carefully away from the planet. Lisa kept playing until they were just dots of light in the distance. When she finally lowered her violin, the communication center was silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Everyone was staring at her with amazement. Lisa, Captain Thompson said quietly, I think you just saved the human race. Lisa looked at her violin. The old instrument seemed to glow in the emergency lighting. Her great-great-grandmother could never have imagined that her music would one day fight aliens in space. No, Lisa said, we all saved the human race. Every human who ever made music or art or poetry. Every person who chose to create beauty instead of destruction. They're all part of this. Outside, the planet Kepler 44 to be waited for them, blue and green and welcoming. The Altheans were already sending messages of congratulations and offers of help. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in 3 years, it looked bright. Lisa packed her violin away carefully. Tomorrow they would land on their new world and begin building a new civilization. And wherever humans went, music would go with them. 3 weeks had passed since the New Horizon landed on Kepler 4 for to be. Lisa stood on a hill overlooking the human settlement, watching people build houses and plant gardens. The Althians had given them a beautiful valley near a river, with rich soil and clean water. For the first time in years, children were laughing and playing outside, but Lisa knew their peace might not last long. Every day, more alien ships arrived at their planet. Word was spreading across the galaxy about what had happened to the Zephyrian fleet. Species that had been enslaved for generations were coming to see if the rumors were true. Lisa called Captain Thompson from behind her. "We have visitors." Lisa turned to see a group of aliens walking up the hill. She recognized Elder Voss, with his pale blue skin and kind eyes, but the others were new. One looked like a giant cat with silver fur and bright green eyes. Another had red skin and fur arms. The third was small and round with purple spots. "These are representatives from other worlds," Elder Voss explained. "They have traveled far to meet you." The cat-like alien stepped forward. "I am Captain Zara of the Centauran Resistance," she said in a voice that sounded like purring. "My people have fought the Zephyrians for 50 years. We heard that humans defeated their fleet with music." Lisa felt embarrassed. "We didn't really defeat them. We just confused them enough to make them leave. That's more than anyone else has done," said the red-skinned alien. "I am Commander Tech from the Marduk system. The Zephyrians destroyed our homeworld 10 years ago. We've been hiding in space ever since." The small purple alien rolled forward on what looked like tiny wheels. "I am Engineer Pix of the Orbital Cities. The Zephyrians use my people as slaves in their factory ships. If music can stop them, we want to learn how." Captain Thompson joined the group. "We're still trying to understand it ourselves. Our scientist, Dr. Chen, thinks it has something to do with brain patterns." "Where is this Dr. Chen?" Captain Zara asked. "And where is the musician who played the weapon song?" "I'm the musician," Lisa said quietly, "but it's not a weapon. It's just music." Captain Zara's green eyes widened. "You are so young. How did you learn to make such powerful sounds?" Lisa touched her violin case. "My family taught me. Humans have been making music for thousands of years. It's part of who we are. Show us," Commander Tech said urgently. "My people are still prisoners. If this music can free them, I need to see it work." Lisa looked at Captain Thompson. He nodded. "It's okay. These are friends." Lisa opened her violin case and lifted out the instrument. The wood seemed to shine in the alien sunlight. She raised it to her chin and began to play a simple melody, one that her mother had taught her when she was very small. The effect on the aliens was immediate, but it was nothing like what had happened to the Zephyrians. Captain Zara closed her eyes and swayed gently. Commander Tech's fur arms relaxed at his sides. Engineer Pix's purple spots seemed to glow brighter. "Beautiful," Captain Zara whispered. "It makes me think of home before the war. It's like a warm blanket for the mind," said Commander Tech. Lisa stopped playing. "Music affects every species differently. For humans, it brings us together and makes us feel connected. For Zephyrians, it causes confusion and pain. For you, it seems to bring peace." Dr. Amy Chen came running up the hill, carrying her portable computer. "Lisa, I've been analyzing the brain scans from our visitors. Each species processes sound waves in a unique way. Music that calms humans might energize other aliens, or make them sad, or even put them to sleep. But it hurts Zephyrians," Captain Zara said. "That's what matters. We need to be careful," Dr. Chen warned. "If we use music as a weapon, we might accidentally harm friendly species too." Engineer Pix rolled closer to Lisa. "Can you teach others to make these sounds? My people have mechanical voices, but maybe we can learn." Lisa smiled. "Anyone can learn music. It just takes practice and patience." Over the next few days, more aliens arrived at the human settlement. Some came in huge ships carrying thousands of refugees. Others came alone in small fighters, looking for hope. All of them had the same request. They wanted to learn about human music. Lisa found herself teaching violin lessons to beings she had never imagined could exist. Captain Zara had excellent hearing and learned quickly. Commander Tech could play for different instruments at once with his forearms. Engineer Pix couldn't hold traditional instruments, but Dr. Chen helped design electronic music makers that responded to touch. Paul Jackson, who had been the drummer in his high school band on Earth, started teaching rhythm to anyone who wanted to learn. Maria Gonzalez, who played piano, showed aliens how to make harmony with multiple notes at the same time. But the most interesting student was a young Althean named Kes. He was Elder Voss's grandson and had been listening to human radio transmissions since he was a child. When Lisa played her violin, Kes could sing along in a voice that sounded like crystal bells. Your music and our voices create something new, Kes explained to Lisa as they practiced together. Something neither humans nor Altheans could make. Alone, Dr. Chen was fascinated by this discovery. Different species might be able to combine their musical abilities. Imagine what we could create together, but not everyone was happy about the growing alliance. Pete Rodriguez, the ship's engineer, was worried about the Zephyrians returning. They're not going to give up, he told Captain Thompson. Admiral Crix will find a way to fight back. Pete was right. 3 days later, long-range sensors detected a massive Zephyrian fleet heading toward Kepler 44b. This time, there were hundreds of ships, not just 3. Captain Thompson called an emergency meeting in the main hall. Representatives from a dozen different species gathered to hear the bad news. The Zephyrians are coming back, the captain announced. Our scouts estimate they'll arrive in 2 days. This fleet is 10 times larger than the last one. They probably have ear protection now, said Captain Zara grimly. Simple music might not work against them. Lisa felt her heart sink. She had hoped they would have more time to practice and learn. But the Zephyrians were coming, and they would be ready for music this time. We need a different approach, Dr. Chen said. Something they won't expect. Elder Voss stood up slowly. The Altheans have technology that can amplify sound across great distances. We use it to communicate between our cities. Perhaps we can make your music loud enough to affect an entire fleet. How loud? Lisa asked. Loud enough to reach every ship at once, Elder Voss replied. Loud enough to fill space itself with sound. Commander Tech's forearms gestured excitedly. If we coordinate multiple species playing together, we could create patterns that are impossible for Zephyrian brains to handle. It's risky, Captain Thompson said. We don't know how such powerful music might affect friendly species. We'll have to take that chance, Captain Zara said. My people volunteered to help, even if the music hurts us too. Lisa looked around the room at all the alien faces. Beings from dozens of worlds, all willing to risk everything to stop the Zephyrian Empire. They were counting on her and her violin to save them all. We'll need every musician we can find, Lisa said. Human and alien, we'll need to practice together until we sound like one voice. How long do we have? Asked Maria Gonzalez. Captain Thompson checked his watch. 47 hours until the Zephyrian fleet arrives. Lisa picked up her violin. Then we better start practicing now. As the sun set over their new home, the sound of music filled the valley. Humans and aliens worked together, learning each other's songs and creating new ones. They had less than 2 days to prepare for the most important concert in galactic history. The fate of free worlds everywhere would depend on how well they could play together. The sky above Kepler 44b was dark with Zephyrian ships. Lisa stood on the roof of the communication center, looking up at what seemed like 1,000 points of light slowly moving across the stars. The enemy fleet was so large it blocked out parts of the night sky. They brought everything they have, Captain Thompson said grimly, standing beside her. Every ship in the Zephyrian Empire must be up there. Lisa held her violin case tighter. Down in the valley, she could see the lights of the refugee camps where beings from dozens of worlds waited for the battle to begin. Children from different Planets played together while their parents prepared for what might be their last day of freedom. "The amplifiers are ready," said Pete Rodriguez, climbing up onto the roof. He had spent the last 2 days working with Althean engineers to build the largest sound system ever created. Aldervoss says it can broadcast music to every ship in the fleet at the same time. Dr. Amy Chen joined them, carrying her computer. "I've been studying the brain patterns of different species. If we coordinate the music correctly, we can create harmonies that will be painful for Zephyrians but safe for our allies. And if we get it wrong," Lisa asked, "then we might hurt our friends as much as our enemies," Dr. Chen admitted. Admiral Crix's voice boomed from speakers across the settlement. "People of Kepler 442b, you have 1 hour to surrender. This time we come prepared for your sonic tricks. We have created protection for our crews. Your music cannot save you now." Lisa looked through a telescope at the flagship in the center of the fleet. She could see Zephyrian soldiers wearing strange helmets that covered their ears. The admiral had been busy during the 3 weeks since their last meeting. "Maybe the music won't work this time," said Commander Zira, climbing onto the roof with them, "but we have to try. My people are ready to fight alongside yours." Below them, the greatest orchestra in galactic history was gathering. Paul Jackson sat behind a drum set that had been modified by engineer picks to create sounds no human drummer had ever made. Maria Gonzalez played a piano that had been connected to Althean crystal resonators. Kes, the young Althean, stood ready to sing with his bell-like voice. Hundreds of other musicians from dozens of species filled the valley. Some held traditional instruments from their home worlds. Others used electronic devices created specially for this moment. All of them were ready to play the most important song of their lives. "It's time," Captain Thompson said, checking his watch. "Lisa, are you ready?" Lisa opened her violin case. The old instrument seemed to glow in the starlight. She thought about her great-great-grandmother who had first played this violin 200 years ago. Could that woman ever have imagined her music would one day fight for freedom among the stars? "I'm ready," Lisa said, lifting the violin to her chin. She began to play softly, just for herself at first. The melody was new, something she had created during their practice sessions. It combined the hopeful sound of human music with the crystal harmonies of the Altheans and the rhythmic patterns that Commander Tech's people loved. As her music floated through the amplifiers, other musicians began to join in. Paul's drums provided a steady heartbeat. Maria's piano added complex chords. Kes sang in his pure, high voice. One by one, every musician in the valley added their voice to the growing symphony. The sound that rose toward the Zephyrian fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever heard. It was the music of cooperation, of different species working together despite their differences. It was the sound of hope refusing to die. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Zephyrian ships continued their slow approach, getting ready to land troops on the planet's surface. Lisa could see through the telescope that the soldiers were still wearing their protective helmets, but then she noticed something strange. The ships were starting to drift out of formation. Not all of them, but some were moving in slow circles instead of straight lines. "It's working," Dr. Chen said, watching her readings. "The music is getting through their protection somehow." "Play louder," Captain Zara called out. "Don't let them adjust to it." Lisa pressed her bow harder against the strings, making her violin sing with more power than ever before. The other musicians followed her lead, increasing their volume until the music seemed to shake the ground beneath their feet. On Admiral Crix's flagship, alarms began to sound. Through the telescope, Lisa could see Zephyrian crew members removing their helmets and holding their heads in pain. The protective devices weren't working against the combined music of multiple species. "Impossible," Admiral Crix's voice came through the speakers, but now it sounded strained and confused. "How are you penetrating our defenses?" "Because you don't understand what music really is," Captain Thompson replied. "It's not just sound waves. It's emotion and creativity and the power of different minds working together. You can't build a helmet to stop that." The Zephyrian fleet was falling apart. Ships collided with each other as their pilots lost control. Fighter craft spun helplessly through space. Some vessels tried to retreat, but their navigation systems were too confused to find the way home. But Lisa could see that Admiral Crix was not giving up. His flagship was still maintaining formation, and she could see him on the screen giving orders to his crew. He was trying to coordinate a desperate attack on the planet's surface. "He's going to crash his ship into our settlement," Dr. Chen said, reading the trajectory on her computer. He'd rather destroy everything than admit defeat. Lisa made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She stopped playing her violin and walked to the communication microphone. "Admiral Crix," she said, her voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. "I want to show you something." She began to play again, but this time the music was different. Instead of the complex harmonies that confused Zephyrian brains, she played something simple and pure. It was a lullaby her mother had sung to her when she was afraid. The effect on the Zephyrian admiral was immediate and unexpected. Instead of pain and confusion, his yellow eyes showed something Lisa had never seen in a Zephyrian before: sadness. "What is this feeling?" Admiral Crix asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's called sorrow," Lisa said gently. "It's what you feel when you understand that you've been hurting people unnecessarily." "I don't understand," the Admiral said. "Zephyrians do not feel sorrow. We feel only strength and the desire to conquer. But you're feeling it now," Lisa said, continuing to play the soft lullaby. "Music doesn't just confuse your mind. It opens parts of your brain that your species has kept closed for thousands of years." Double quotes. Dr. Chen was watching her readings with amazement. "Lisa, you're activating his emotional centers. Zephyrians have them, but they've been suppressed by their culture." Admiral Crix's ship had stopped its attack run and was now floating motionless in space. On the screen, Lisa could see the alien commander looking at his hands as if he had never seen them before. "I have ordered the deaths of millions," he said slowly. "I have destroyed worlds and enslaved entire species." "Why did I do these things?" "Because you were told it made you strong," Lisa said. "But real strength comes from protecting others, not hurting them." The rest of the Zephyrian fleet had stopped fighting as well. The music was affecting every crew member, awakening emotions they had never been allowed to feel. For the first time in their species' history, Zephyrians were experiencing empathy. "What have we become?" Admiral Crix asked, and Lisa could hear tears in his voice. "You've become people who can choose to be better," Lisa said. "It's never too late to start over." The battle was over, but Lisa kept playing. The lullaby floated through space, touching every heart in the Zephyrian fleet. She could see alien soldiers removing their weapons and sitting down to cry for all the harm they had caused. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Zephyrians would need to learn how to live with emotions they had never felt before. The Alliance of Free Worlds would need to decide whether to trust their former enemies. But tonight, for the first time in galactic history, there was hope for true peace. And it had all started with a young woman and her violin playing a song her mother had taught her long ago on a world that no longer existed. The music of humanity had changed everything. 1 year had passed since the great battle above Kepler 4 for to be. Lisa stood on the same hill where she had first met the alien visitors, but now the valley below looked completely different. The small human settlement had grown into a beautiful city where beings from dozens of worlds lived together in peace. Buildings designed by Althean architects stood next to houses built in the human style. Zephyrian engineers worked alongside former enemies to create new technologies. Children from different planets played together in parks where the grass was blue-green and the flowers sang in the wind. "Hard to believe how much has changed," said Captain Thompson, walking up behind Lisa. He was no longer just a ship captain. The Alliance of Free Worlds had chosen him as their first president, though he still preferred his old uniform to fancy diplomatic clothes. Lisa smiled. "Sometimes I think I'm dreaming. A year ago, we were refugees running from planet to planet. Now we're teachers in the galaxy's first music academy, down in the valley." She could see the Academy of Harmonic Sciences where she now worked, Students from every known species came to learn about music and how it could bring different minds together. What had started as a desperate weapon had become a tool for understanding and friendship. The first graduation ceremony is tomorrow, Captain Thompson said. Are you ready for your speech? I think so, Lisa said, touching her violin case. Though I never imagined I'd be giving speeches to alien diplomats, a small transport ship landed nearby and Elder Voss stepped out with a group of young Alphians, but they weren't alone. Walking beside them were several Zephyrians, including someone Lisa recognized immediately. Admiral Crix looked very different from the fierce military commander who had once threatened to enslave humanity. He still wore a uniform, but now it was white instead of black, and instead of weapons, he carried a small electronic device that could create music. His yellow eyes, once filled with coldness, now showed warmth and curiosity. Lisa, Elder Voss called out. Admiral Crix has something important to tell you. The former Zephyrian commander approached slowly. Even after a year of learning about emotions, he still found it difficult to express his feelings. Lisa Martinez, he said formally, I have come to report on the rehabilitation of my people. You don't have to be so formal, Lisa said gently. We're friends now, remember? Admiral Crix's face showed what might have been a smile. It was still strange to see a Zephyrian display happiness. It is difficult for me to be casual, but I am learning. How are your people doing? Captain Thompson asked. Better than we hoped, Admiral Crix replied. When my fleet returned to Zephyrian space, we brought your music with us. We played it for everyone, soldiers, workers, children who had been trained only for war. The effect was the same everywhere. For the first time in our history, Zephyrians felt empathy. Lisa remembered those first days after the battle, when confused Zephyrian soldiers had landed on Kepler 4 to be asking for help understanding their new emotions. It had been difficult and sometimes dangerous, but slowly they had learned to live with feelings they had never experienced before. There was resistance at first, Admiral Crix continued. Some of our leaders tried to stop the music, claiming it made us weak. But once the people heard it, they could not go back to the old ways. How can you choose cruelty when you understand how it feels to hurt someone? Dr. Amy Chen came running up the hill, her computer in her hands as always. Lisa, you need to see this. We're getting signals from all over the galaxy. She showed them her screen, which displayed a map of known space. Dozens of star systems were blinking with activity. What are we looking at? Lisa asked. Music broadcasts, Dr. Chen explained excitedly. Species that we've never even met are sending us recordings of their own music. Word has spread about what happened here, and everyone wants to be part of the alliance. How many new species? Captain Thompson asked. 47 so far, and more arriving every day. Some of them have been hiding from the Zephyrians for centuries. Others lived so far away that they never knew about the Empire. But they all heard about the power of music to bring peace. Lisa looked at Admiral Crix. Your people are helping with this, aren't they? Yes, he said, and this time his smile was more natural. Former Zephyrian ships are now carrying musicians instead of weapons. We are visiting every world that was once part of our empire, offering to share music instead of demanding surrender, and it's working better than we ever imagined. On Proxima 7, a planet my people enslaved for 50 years, former prisoners are now teaching Zephyrian children how to sing. On the mining world of Tau Ceti, workers and overseers perform concerts together every evening. Engineer Pix rolled up the hill on his little wheels, his purple spots glowing with excitement. Lisa, you must see what we have built for tomorrow's ceremony. He led them down into the valley, where construction crews were putting finishing touches on a massive amphitheater. The stage was large enough to hold 1,000 musicians, and the seating area could accommodate representatives from every world in the growing alliance. It's beautiful, Lisa said, looking at the graceful curves and crystal pillars that would amplify sound perfectly. But that's not the best part, said Kess, the young Althean who had become Lisa's closest alien friend. Show her the special Feature Engineer Pix pressed a button on his control device. The entire amphitheater began to glow with soft light, and holographic projectors activated around the stage. Suddenly, Lisa could see images of musicians from dozens of worlds, all playing together despite being separated by vast distances. Real-time music sharing across the galaxy, Engineer Pix explained proudly. Tomorrow, when you perform, musicians on 1,000 different planets will be able to play along. The largest orchestra in galactic history, Lisa felt tears in her eyes. A year ago, she had been a frightened refugee with nothing but an old violin and fading memories of Earth. Now she was at the center of a musical revolution that was changing the entire galaxy. There's something else, Admiral Crix said quietly. Something my people discovered while exploring the old empire. What is it? Captain Thompson asked. We found other humans. Small groups who escaped Earth and have been hiding in distant systems. When they heard about Kepler-4 and the Music Alliance, they started coming home. Lisa's heart jumped. How? Many, nearly 10,000 so far, families, scientists, artists who managed to escape in small ships. They've been living in secret for 3 years, afraid to broadcast any signals that might attract our attention. But now they know it's safe. They'll be here tomorrow, Elder Voss added. For the first graduation ceremony and the first New Year celebration since leaving Earth, Lisa looked around at all her friends, human and alien, former enemies and old allies. Tomorrow would mark exactly 2 years since the New Horizon had first arrived at this world. 2 years since she had played her violin in a desperate attempt to save her people. What will you play tomorrow? Kes asked. Lisa smiled. The same song I played that first night, the one about new beginnings and hope. But this time, I won't be playing it alone. As the sun set over New Earth, as the planet had come to be known, Lisa could hear music drifting from houses and workshops throughout the city. Humans humming old Earth songs, Althians practicing their crystal harmonies, even Zephyrians learning to create their first melodies. The violin that had once belonged to her great-great-grandmother now belonged to the galaxy. Every note played on it had become part of a larger symphony. The music of different worlds learning to live together in harmony. Tomorrow would bring the largest concert in galactic history. Musicians from 1,000 worlds would play together, proving that music truly was a universal language. But tonight, Lisa was content to sit on her hill and listen to the gentle songs of a peaceful city. Her violin case lay open beside her, the old instrument gleaming in the starlight. She picked it up and began to play softly, just for herself and the stars. The melody was simple and sweet, a lullaby her mother had taught her long ago on a world that was now just a memory, but the song carried on the wind, touching the hearts of everyone who heard it, reminding them all that sometimes the most powerful weapons in the universe are made not of metal and energy, but of hope and beauty and the courage to keep creating something wonderful, even in the darkest times. The music of humanity had saved the galaxy, but more importantly, it had taught everyone that being different didn't mean being enemies. In a universe full of strange and wonderful beings, there was always room for one more voice in the great cosmic symphony, and the song would play on, forever and always, carrying the promise of new years and new beginnings to every corner of space.